The first question we're going to ask ourselves in the first answer is, do women obsess over emotionally unavailable men? And the answer is yes, to a certain degree and in the right context. And we have to understand what it even means to be emotionally unavailable. And just to paint that picture, let's come up with a hyperbolic example, but it'll make things a lot more clear. So you have a guy, he's emotionally unavailable. He doesn't give a fuck. But he's also ugly as shit, which is fine. Maybe if you have game, good sense of humor, maybe you have some good fashion, you can kind of put some makeup on your appearance to make up for the fact that you're ugly as goddamn sin. You're funny. You got some eccentric quirks that make you a bit interesting. You got cool body language. You know how women think, how women work, and you know how to recognize signs of attraction and, amplify or pull back the interest that you show a girl depending on what she's giving you, right? A balance of interest, and then you scale up the investment as she's also giving you investment, which is pretty much just fucking game, right? She shows interest, you reciprocate, and then if there's ever a point where she's pulling back, you pull back, or you pull back first to see how she reacts to it, etc. Game, right? This guy doesn't have any of that. The only thing he has going for him is he's emotionally unavailable. Fucking ugly, unattractive in behaviors, not just physically, doesn't know how women work. Are women going to chase after that man? No, duh. Pretty easy logic, right? So it's not so simple for us to just go, oh, being emotionally unavailable, that's going to make women chase after me, right? But then you say, well, I'm not one of those things. I'm not this hyperbolic extreme example. Okay, that's fine. So you understand that you still need to get some attraction in the first place, right? Once that attraction is triggered and then you're actually, interacting with her. This is a little bit uneven. My OCD is kind of kicking in. I think I just made it worse. Whatever. Once you have that attraction triggered, then you can be emotionally unavailable. And then she's gonna be chasing after you, right? She's gonna be, oh, this guy isn't like the other guys, and he's not texting me all the time. Maybe you're not even texting her at all. He's this and that, and he's not a nice guy, and she's thinking about you. Kind of, it can kind of work like that. But again, there needs to be some understanding of the nuance here, because if you just go in with this blank check of like emotionally unavailable, boom, and you try to cash it, you're not going to get back as much as you think you are. I know, because I've tried everything under the sun when it comes to girls, right? I've tested everything. I've seen other guys testing things, and I have fallen for that trick of, I see a guy, not really caring about a girl or blah, 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 and she's chasing after him, whereas I'm maybe showing more emotions and I'm not getting the same results. First of all, you have to judge things by what's actually happening, not what's happening on the surface. You might see that she's chasing after him, but then they get back to his place and she puts up a bunch of walls, and then he starts to act needy in that case, right? Or you see a guy with his girlfriend and he kind of acts unemotional and she kind of chases after him, but then what you don't see is that she gets really fed up with his behavior and then starts to try and get revenge by flirting with other guys. And then his emotional unavailability is tested. Does he really not care that much? I've personally never met a guy who truly lives up to that standard to the degree that the mythology of it, like the heartless bad boy. Never actually met one who truly encompasses that. Even a psychopath, right? I had a friend in college who's my best friend. He literally admitted to me he has a diagnosed empathy disorder. And he had a lot of psychopathic traits. Not as severe as his brother, who was in and out of jail all the time. He would just walk into Walmart and just grab something he wants and walks out. Like, he was retarded about his psychopathy, right? This guy was a little bit more intelligent about it. He knew how to camouflage stuff and blah, blah, blah. I would still see him get tripped up by girls. Why? Because even a psychopath is concerned with his own ego. I mean, that's actually his number one thing, right? So if that's tripped, he will devolve if he doesn't have the game, into behaviors that look like fucking chasing and beta ass behavior, whatever you want to, designate it, buzzword or not. And I'm not saying you should ever be a psychopath, right? I'm just taking the extreme example and showing you even those guys, I've seen them get tripped up. Even a guy who's like a famous celebrity and has all these girls chasing after him. Once he's actually invested in a girl, how quickly can he drop her? You'd be surprised about, the level of emotional unavailability the guys who profess to having this trait actually have, right? So we have to be, if you don't have any experience with women, this idea, this notion of the heartless bad boy can seem very, very attractive, especially when you're hurt and you kind of, what's underneath it is a lot of revenge. But that's pussy shit, right? We're interested in results here, right? So we're going to kind of go painstakingly slow into the nuance of this, because that's what my channel is designed to do. It's designed to like explain things in rigorous detail so that you're not falling prey for a lot of the half-baked philosophy that most dating coaches give you. A lot of them are good with girls, but a lot of them are just like slightly above average, but then to everyone else that seems like a large gap in results. And then some of them might be very good, but they don't know how to explain things in a way that's really effective. And it can even be detrimental to you, because without detail and nuance, you're going to be not implementing it properly or implementing it immorally, which is also something that we're going to have to get into as well. And you would think that there was all that rage about when Red Pill first started to come out, because it was called the Manosphere before it was called Red Pill. And a lot of these guys were like, had big boners about, amoral dating strategies. Not necessarily immoral, but amoral, right? Not really regarding the morality of it, but not necessarily doing something that's bad, but just not really caring if it's good or not. But I've seen guys in real life who adopt these behaviors. Maybe they're not like involved in Red Pill. They just kind of do it naturally because they're pieces of shit. And not saying all Red Pill is piece of shit. It has a lot of good philosophies that, added a realistic, injected some realism into pickup, and some dynamic edges where it's not just game. It's also a lot of other things. It's lifestyle. It's your appearance, etc. But again, just like with the example of like the guy who's doesn't really care and he's really cold, but then he ends up having all this drama because he's an asshole. It's not as effective as you think it is. Okay. So we need to go into two nuances that you have to understand, why women will chase after guys who are emotionally unavailable. And in this part of the video, or this first part, so there's going to be a second video, we're just going after why it works. Okay. And then we're going to go into like how to actually do it properly. Okay. So I'm just checking my notes over here just to make sure because sometimes I tend to go into digression. Like this past like 7 minutes has been a complete digression because I felt it come up naturally. Like I should cover this point. But okay. So, it's actually three things. Yeah. So once attraction is triggered, like she likes you. Okay. Because, again, the example of the guy who's unattractive but just doesn't care. It doesn't matter. You can sit in your fucking room all day and not care about women. Women aren't going to knock on your door and be like, oh, my God, he's emotionally unavailable. Let me suck his dick. Like, that's not how it works, right? So, firstly, when you're actually in the seduction process, right, you have to understand that when women are chasing after an emotionally unavailable guy, in this, let's say it works in the way you think it does. It does to a certain extent. What you might fantasize will happen is not necessarily what will happen. Okay. Guys have this fantasy, and I know because I've had it myself and I've tested it. And on certain occasions, it did play out how I wanted to. But then when I didn't do the other parts that I'm going over in this video, it had a very short lifespan. Like I'd be this unemotional guy, and then it'd be really great. And I'm like, oh, I'm this fucking pimp who doesn't give a shit. And she's just sucking on my dick and wanting me and da-da. And then I would hit the problems. Okay. So we're going to see why it works, but it works really well if you do it correctly. Okay. So firstly, this fantasy of thinking you're going to be the stone cold bad boy who doesn't give a shit it's not going to play out how you think it is, in the sense that it's not going to be an Axe body spray commercial. Psh, let me spray all this fucking indifference and uncaringness over my body, and these women are just going to fucking come after me. Okay. That's not how it's going to look. Okay. At all stages of the seduction. If you go to a club and you just kind of sit there all mysterious and this, you're probably going to get some attention if you have some attractiveness, right? So you have to remember that first part. If you have some attractiveness, whatever, in your body language, your looks, you got something going for you. Women are going to pay attention to you, but they're usually not going to be approaching you. The only women who are going to be like outright approaching you are women who are way below your, grade, right? Let's say you're an 8, just generally. Like, women who are willing to approach you are probably going to be like 5s and 6s. You might have a really big outlier where like an actually pretty attractive woman will approach you, but those are only very certain conditions that are happening. Right? She just happens to be ovulating. She's, she just got broken up with, or just broke up with a guy, so she's just looking to have some fucking fun. There might be some certain cases, but it's not consistent, right? We're looking for consistent strategies that work, not just rolling fucking dice, okay? One condition that might be a little bit more consistent is if you're in a social circle situation where, like, you go with your buddies to a party or something, and then she's there and has, like, an in to you, right? Like, you're talking to your friend and then she sees you and she can actually start a conversation with you, right? I've had really high value women approach me when I was at, I remember walking past this girl at my university and we just locked eyes. And, like, she was so hot to me. And I could tell she was interested. Well, I went to a different fraternity's party and I saw her and I was like, I'm going to play it cool. And I was just hanging out with all my other friends, playing beer pong, blah, 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 blah. And we just kept exchanging looks and, smiling. So I was still actually playing the game a little bit. I wasn't completely ignoring her. But aside from those small little glances, which are important because that's still me making a move, eventually at some point she walked past me and she just walked up to me, or she started to walk past me, then she turned, she looked up at me and she said, "Who are you?" I was like, "What do you mean? What kind of question is that?" And she's like, "I've asked around about you, and apparently you just, like, hang out with everyone, and you're just friends with everyone, and this and that, but you're not even in this fraternity." Like, because it's very strange for a guy who's not in the fraternity to hang out at private fraternity parties. And then I explained to her, I'm like, "Oh, I'm in a different fraternity, but I have a lot of friends in this fraternity, and, kind of like, I'm the super social guy who a lot of other fraternity guys, not all of them, like to hang out with, blah, 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 blah. Some of my best friends are here, etc." So she actually was willing to approach me, but it was a lot of other conditions were setting it up. Okay. So outside of those niche circumstances, first of all, you're going to have to be doing the approaching. Okay. You're not going to get away with just being this, like, I'm just a cool guy who doesn't care, and not approach. You're probably going to have to approach 9 out of 10 girls who you're interested in. Okay? Because women just aren't going to be doing that level of work. That's just how it goes. So the man-woman dynamic is still going to be in place no matter how emotionally unavailable you are. Okay, so women chasing after you, they might show a lot of signs of interest and, like, walk by you and give you hints, but you're going to have to approach at some point. And what's kind of funny is we start contradicting ourselves already. Because I've seen videos about this topic, and I looked in the comments to see, like, what are people's perceptions about this, like, emotional unavailability, right? And the goal of this video is to, like, clear the bullshit, right? And kind of get guys away from these fucking jerk-off fantasies. And, like, one of the comments was, like, emotional unavailability, no desire for women. And I'm like, okay, so you're not going after women? it's like, it's these fucking retarded philosophy fantasies. So, like, I have no desire. It's like, so does your dick never get hard for a woman? No. If you're trying to have sex with women, if you're even thinking about it, you have desire for them. So let's just, like, be realistic for a moment, understand that we have a lot of desire for girls, and if you're going through all of these fucking mental gymnastics in order to get girls, you're obsessed with them, okay? So let's take a moment and realistically embrace our desire. There's nothing wrong with desire for women, and you should show a lot of desire for women. So this emotional this is kind of already going into the second video, kind of, but, like, this emotional unavailability is going to be, like, shown in spurts. But if you think you're just going to be this, like, I don't care, then you wouldn't even talk to women in the first place. Okay. So, you're going to have to do the approaching. You're going to probably have to carry conversation a bit and lead it, right? You're probably going to have to be the one hitting escalation windows, meaning the one who's like either going for the ask out, asking for her number, moving her if you're in a night game situation, hey, let's go outside, trying to pull her home, right? Or if you are doing a date setup, not like a meeting her at a bar or club, like, hey, when are you free? Let's grab a drink, da-da-da. You're still going to be having to make the moves, but what's going to be attractive in the process of that is you're just going to be not too emotionally unavailable. You're going to be somewhat emotionally available because you're showing interest simply in virtue of the fact that you're going after her. Okay? But you're only going to be giving like the bare minimum, but also at some point you're actually going to show a lot of interest, right? But they're going to be little spurts of interest, right? I'm basically rolling into the second video already, but that's just how I roll. I give a lot of fucking details. So you're going to be giving these spurts as you're first of all, making moves on a girl is showing a lot of interest. So if you're fucking a girl, you're giving her validation, because there's also a lot of these channels like, don't give girls validation. It's like simply by virtue of the fact that you're, trying to have sex with her is a demonstration of interest. So these are high spikes of interest, but also you're going to be passively showing interest. Most guys do not have 100% control over their body language and facial expressions. Your emotions are going to be fucking leaking through. Okay. But what's going to be happening in your emotional unavailability, or, let's call it emotional discipline is probably the better way to think about it, is you're going to be playing the game, which is if she's not reciprocating interest relative to the level I am, I'm going to pull back. If she is showing interest relative to the level that I am, I'm either going to maintain my level of interest that I'm showing to her or amplify it to see if we can push it even further. Because she might just be shy, she might be holding back herself, and then you pushing things further gives her permission to express her emotions, because for the most part, like I said, the man-woman dynamic is still going to be in play, and you're going to have to lead things and push it. Very rarely is the woman going to be taking all these risks and pushing forward. Women are just not trained. They haven't trained their life to be the pursuers. They've been trained and conditioned their entire life to be the pursued. So you're going to have to still be making the moves, is what I'm saying. But while you're making the moves, what's going to be attractive about you as you're being emotionally disciplined is your ability to a certain degree, you don't have complete control over it because that requires perfect mindfulness at every single moment of every action that you're giving and every word that you're saying and how you're saying it. But while you're expressing yourself with your words and your eye contact and your facial expressions and your body language, right, your fundamentals in your game and what you're actually choosing to say, you're going to be having discipline over how much like emotions, like let's say you have a dam, and how much water are you going to let through. Because if you let too much water through, it's going to, drown her in interest, and she's going to be like, well, it's too much. I'm getting out of here, right? But if you're not giving enough, which is the next thing that we're going to get into, then she's not going to ever feel a reason to continue this seduction, right? So that leads into our second point. If you're going to be the emotional unavailability guy, like the Rock, the more stoic one, which usually you want to be to a certain extent, your personality can play some role in here. Like, I'm a very expressive guy, okay? So I'm actually, at certain points in a seduction, you're going to see me showing a lot of interest. But I'm gauging how she's reacting to it, right? So I don't want you to think that this is only for guys who are really stoic, or, doesn't work for guys who are really expressive. You can be really expressive and outgoing and showing a lot of interest. You're just going to have the ability to pull it back at certain points. Right, so think of it like big flashes of interest, but then if, of course, she's not reciprocating, then you pull back. But then there's also the nuance of girls who just are more reserved, or they're putting on an act, but you just keep like blasting them with like really warm, flirty energy, and you can see that they're putting on an act. Like, I've had girls like that who kind of put on the like bad bitch act, and I just keep hitting them with like a bunch of interest, and I'm like, oh, you're so cute, because I'm totally unintimidated by the act, and that actually works too. You can like melt their icy exterior and, fuck them really quickly Whereas most guys would go, okay, I got to play it cool with her. And it's like, no, that's fucking lame. Like, you're intimidated by her emotions, which is, interestingly enough, one of the like main motivations for this entire philosophy of not showing validation. Basically, dudes are pussies and they're afraid of getting rejected. And it's like, if you're truly emotionally unavailable, you'd be willing to like give max emotions 100% at every moment and not give a shit about how she responds, because that's true outcome independence. So there's a lot of, internal contradictions and inconsistencies in a lot of these philosophies, because the people who are perpetrating them are not the brightest. Okay, that's why I'm here. So you're gonna have to be, but going back to like the actual game of like, she puts effort, you put effort, and then it kind of like is growing together, and reciprocating. She needs to get some return on her investment for her to continue wanting to interact with you, right? There has to be a moment where she can get the carrot for a little bit, right? If you just give someone the carrot, they don't value it so much. But if you constantly keep the carrot like on the stick and they can never get to it, they're eventually going to give up because it's not worth it. Like, what's the payoff, right? Everything in this world has to have a payoff, or it's not, no one's going to do it. So the same thing in a seduction. If you just come in like emotionally unavailable and you don't give girls any validation, any sort of like, you smile at them, you flirt with them, you make moves on them, after that initial point of attraction, she might be like, oh wow, this guy's, I have to work for him, da-da-da. But if you just give nothing in return, she's not going to, continue for very long. I know because I've tried it. Girl's interested in me, I'm flirting with her, then I'm like, oh, I got to play it cool. And she kind of chases more. She's like flirting, showing more interest, leaning in, touching me. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so cool. She really likes me. But I keep playing this card, keep playing this card, keep playing this card. And then all of a sudden, I'm so enraptured in my own bullshit, she's cold now. She's like, okay, well, I'm going to get going, or like, hey, I'm going to go find my friends, or, she just gets this look on her face, like, whatever. And then you're like, oh, hey. And she's like, yeah, see ya. And then, like, fucks off. And you're like, whoa, I was playing this bad boy, right? Girls don't like nice guys. They like bad boys. They like jerks, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, here's a, like, fucking empirical evidence that that's not true, that there's more nuance to this. Then I would have seductions where I'm this super fucking lovey-dovey gay boy, and girls love it, right? So the guys, again, who perpetrate these philosophies, they're just not that good. They're very one-dimensional in their seduction theory and also their practice, right? But they are at least a head and shoulder above the average guy, so it looks like this grand enlightening philosophy, and actually they're pretty mid-fucking tier. Whereas like the highest tier guys, they've had so much experience with different, approaches to seduction, and they have also known many other guys who have different approaches to seduction. They know there isn't one method that works, but they do understand the framework of why everything works. They've kind of figured out the grand unified theorem of why everything can work, which very simply, for the most part, is, you're reciprocating interest, generally how much she's giving it. And you'll have moments of amplification, but if she's not returning interest, like she's not showing as much emotions in the conversation, trying as hard, this and that, but you continue to pile it on, generally there's going to be an imbalance of attraction and she's going to reject. Or in this case, she's showing so much more and you're not giving anything because you're emotionally unavailable, and then you lose her, right? So at some point, you're going to actually have to give her emotions, which is going to require you to drop this guard, which is very funny because how most guys are going to do this, it's a total act. There's no actual genuine emotional indifference behind it, which is really what we're going to go over in the second part. Like, what actually makes you emotionally indifferent? And the solution that most guys give you is garbage. Okay? We're going to get to that at the end of the video, right? So you're going to have to still be doing the work because you're the man. You're going to have to give her some payoff in the seduction, right? And what's going to make that so amazing and why she's going to chase after you and get obsessed with you is because you're going to be a bit emotionally indifferent, but then in those parts where she gets to taste the carrot, it's going to be delicious. The best example was this girl who I briefly dated back in Romania, gorgeous girl. And the story of how I met her is actually kind of funny. A friend went on a date on Tinder, and he double booked both of the girls, like one girl at like, let's say 4 o'clock and another girl at like 6. Well, he showed up and they both showed up together. They were like best friends. He just happened to match with both of them and set up a date with both of them, and they kind of coordinated and figured out that they were going on a date with the same guy. And but they took it well and they didn't get too upset. And then they talked, and then they were going to come smoke with us later, and he came over to tell me the story. Well, then they came over, and he ended up kind of pairing with the one girl, and I paired with like who I thought was the hotter one, because she started flirting with me and showing interest. And I was like, okay, cool. And then we all went out that night and ended up pulling her back and fucking her until like 6 a.m. I must have fucked that girl like 12 times. I could not get enough of her. And then we fucked another time. And then one of the times we hung out, she picked me up and I got in her car, and she kind of is like one of those like more unemotional, like I'm a bad bitch. Like she's not like saying any of those like I'm a bad bitch things. She just like doesn't show a lot of emotions. But I knew it was an act to a certain extent, right? So I'm just being my normal lovey-dovey kind of self. Well, at some point, I get in the car and she has some music on, and I'm just dancing and having fun. And I'm looking at her, and I'm just like, making faces or whatever. I'm dancing, having fun. And she's kind of cracking a smile because she likes my energy, and because it's a nice contrast between her kind of like, oh, I'm this cool girl. Well, at some point, she looks at me, and then she just kind of pauses and goes, and then, goes back to kind of being serious. And I just I smiled, and I was happy to see that part of her. And I told her, and I was like, that was actually really nice to see you kind of like break down your wall. And you're a lot more attractive when you're more sincere and genuine like that. And, it kind of brushed off her because, she has this act that she's putting on. But it didn't come off as like white knighting, like, oh, you should smile more. Like, oh my God, you should show more emotions. Because, I absolutely like destroyed this girl's pussy and fucked her like a goddamn whore. So, it wasn't simping. But she still had this exterior, right? But that moment when I saw her let that guard down was so beautiful. So in a way, that was me getting the carrot a little bit. So her game was working, right? So she was emotionally unavailable, gave me a carrot, and then, it did make me get more invested, right? So the same thing should happen when you aren't, interacting with girls. If you're going to be, learning to discipline your emotions, you're going to have to give the carrot. But when you give the carrot, they're going to be like, oh, that's what I've been looking for. And then they're going to want it again and again and again, right? But what's super important, the third thing, is that we have to have some compassion behind this. Because if you're driven by any level of like bitterness, anger with women because you've been cheating on blah, 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 go fuck yourself. This is not for you. Not only is like a moral condemnation, but like you're just going to be mid-tier always. Any guy who is espousing these philosophies and comes off like super bitter and like, I don't really care about women, they're always going to be mid-tier. Always. They're never going to be super high tier with women. Because even if they have a high lay count, because this is literally all they do, and they've been doing it for like 20, 25 years, and they just learned one strategy and it and it works, but they've never actually broken their own paradigms to like make it a higher level, you're always going to be stuck in mid-tier, and you're a pussy. Because if you're driven completely by just lust but also negative emotions, you're never going to have that effect on women where women just love you, right? Because if you truly love women, women are going to love you back, right? Zamparion said, a man who loves women is loved by women. Like, a man who genuinely just likes women and loves being around them and sees them as cute and silly, which is a philosophy that Chase really, really emphasizes. And it's something that's really hard for a lot of guys to wrap their head around, because Chase was talking about how some of his most controversial articles that really get people, their panties in a twist. He said nothing was as controversial as my article, Girls Are Silly and Cute. Like, it wasn't the anti-red pill stuff. It wasn't the, whatever might be a bit controversial in, dating advice, which a lot of it is. He said nothing was as controversial as me saying that girls are silly and cute, because everyone hated it. Black pill losers who women hated it. Red pill guys hated it, or manosphere guys hated it. Even a lot of pickup guys who are still a bit bitter, like they hate it because the idea that women are just like, hey, they're cute and fun. Like, yeah, we're gonna exchange, like you use my body, I use your body, we exchange bodily fluids. Like there is that element of it. But there's also the element of like, I like feminine energy and women like masculine energy. That's why we're drawn to each other, aside from just the physical component. That idea is difficult because guys have so much anger that's blocking them from just like, hey, we're just having fun. It's kind of like playing a competitive PvP game and like you take it so seriously, which is good because you might be better at it because you put effort into it, but you take it so emotionally seriously that you get really angry. And I know that as a guy who rages at Dota matches. You're never going to hit the highest level. You're going to have to learn how to have fun with it. Right? And in this case, having fun with girls is just accepting all the negatives that can come with spending time with women, but also having a compassion and a loving kindness for just like, I want to make girls smile. I just like giving girls a good experience. And I just had a client of mine slept with a girl with this philosophy. He had there was a girl that he had met like 3.5 years ago, or 4 years ago, actually. But the last time he talked to her was 3.5 years ago. And she ended up leaving him on red and kind of lost touch with her. Well, she was a flight attendant. And just, this past month, I think he was on a flight and he ended up seeing her and went up to her and like reintroduced himself and started talking to her. And then she came by later, grabbed him and pulled him to the side to talk to him more. And then as the flight finished, he was like, hey, are you single? We can, grab a drink sometime. She's like, no, I'm not single. And he's like, oh, okay, cool, no worries. But she still ended up giving him his, or he still had her number, right? So they were still in touch. And then, they just exchanged like a, hey, it was really nice to see you, funny coincidence to run into each other after all this time. And when he messaged me, he was like, it was a really cool experience to see how differently she treated me now after I've done so much work on myself in terms of dating experience versus, how she treated me back then. And she was so much more flirty and compliant and da-da-da. And what he said to me was like, it's disappointing that I'm not going to get a chance with her, but it was nice just to give a girl a cool experience. I mean, a really beautiful girl flirting with you, I mean, even if you don't get with her, it's still a nice experience, right? Well, the same in the converse plays out. Like, girls like when a guy they find attractive flirts with them and gives them a nice time, even if they don't end up getting with him. It's still an enjoyable experience, right? And if you have this in your foundation of your philosophy, just you enjoy flirting with girls and giving them, a nice, even if it's just a quick compliment or a nice conversation. But he had this philosophy behind it. Well, it turned out she started texting him and texting him and texting him. And they ended up sleeping together, which at first I was like, hey, she's not in a relationship, or she's in a relationship, that wasn't the right thing to do. But then the second time he ended up sleeping with her, he should have covered this before he slept with her the first time. But the second time he fucked her, he asked her, like, are you single? Or like, what's going on? And she's like, yeah, I'm single. I just lied to you. Because, I'm used to guys hitting on me all the time on an airplane. But the way he handled it was different. Right? Like, she was on the edge of, like, rejecting him. Because if she was 100% sold on him, she wouldn't have said that. So she was still not fully sold on him because, she probably still had the memory of, like, his past self and then his new self. And there's probably, like, is he really a cool guy now or whatever? But the way he handled it, because of his philosophy that I've, been trying to enforce or like, ingrain in him, is, just loving girls and spending time and having fun. Like, just enjoying the experience, right? Still having skill and still putting effort into things, right? You don't just like, oh, I like girls, and all of a sudden they're jumping all over you. You still have to have skill. That played a role in him handling it properly and led to him having sex with her. A 4-year comeback, like a really cool thing. So we're going to have some compassion and morality behind this, because not just like, again, for moral condemnation reasons, like you're a bad guy, right? Because people don't respond well to that. Like, well, fuck you, you're just a beta bitch, and I know how women really work. You're just a cuck, and, I don't care about women. And, they're going to chase after me because I'm alpha, big dick, ombre sandwich. It also is a high tier move, And you only experience this if you've taken the like willingness to be really compassionate and loving of women. And I've tested it. Like, I literally was like, I'm gonna be the most beta nice guy ever, and I'm gonna see how women respond to it. And I would go to clubs, like cutthroat environments, and I would see girls and be like, oh, hi, you're so pretty, what's your name, come here. And they're like, hi, my name's Sarah, nice to meet you, and da-da-da. And like, it wasn't just like they were being nice to me. Like, I'd be like making out with them, like feeling up their ass within like a couple seconds of meeting them. So like, trust me, dude, this like compassion and loving girls and being kind to women and people in general, it is a high tier move. Okay. So we're going to have to implement that as well. And while you're in this emotional unavailability, indifference, big dick dude who's not like chasing after girls and is giving validation, then it's not quiet and she's chasing after that carrot, the whole shebang that I was just explained. Words. She's gonna be in love with what's going on, but then at the same time there's still going to be this good-naturedness behind it. And it's not going to feel callous and shitty. And what's that going to do is it's going to prevent all of the issues that the guys who do this in a heartless fashion end up running into. Girls are going to chase after you, but then they're going to feel butthurt because they had to work so hard. And then they're going to go into auto rejection or ego defense, and they're going to get revenge on you. So then you're going to start, showing interest again because she's chased after you. But then once you start showing interest, she's going to pull back, and then it's going to become this ego battle because she can sense that you're doing it out of spite. Well, if you do it from compassion and you're just like, well, it's just not the right move to make. I'm not doing it to hurt you, right? And some guys might think, no, I'm just an amoral, I'm just practical. It's just a systematic thing that I'm doing. No, you got some anger behind it. You got some bitterness behind it. You've gotten cucked. You've gotten cheated on. You've gotten betrayed. You've gotten lied to. You've gotten rejected. And you're just a bit butthurt. I know, because everyone's gone through it. Okay? You're not special. All right? But if you learn how to erase that as much as you can out of the equation, you're not going to get as much of this combative behavior from girls because they're going to trust you. Right? You need lust, right? But that's usually what every guy is the blue pill beta nerds are teaching you how to love girls, right? Or what they think is love. And then red pill hardcore is how to get lust, right? But then they're totally missing the other side of the equation, and then they're also missing trust, right? The trust that this person has good intentions. That even if they want to use your ass, mouth, and pussy and at like a fucking cum dumpster, right? You can still totally respect someone that you do that to and love them and care about them, right? You just happen to be using their body and treating them like a whore physically, but you still treat them like a good person, like conversationally, emotionally, person to person, human to human. So add some compassion to this, and it's going to come off even more powerful because when you act from a place of ill will and unkindness and lack of empathy, it's just not as effective either. So if you're not persuaded by morality, then be persuaded by practicality and efficiency. Because if you're compassionate and you care about women, you're just going to be better. I'll blow any psychopath, like douchey dude out of the water. That was a weird sentence. I'll blow any fucking psychopath. You got to finish the sentence, Hector. Out of the water. Meaning I'll whoop his ass in a seduction off, right? I'll just be better because I actually like girls and they're going to sense that. But I'm not like chasing after them and bait a nerd, right? Because I understand nuance, but most guys don't. It's very black and white. You're either a nice guy or you're a fucking asshole, and that's just who I am, and I'm going to get all the bitches because I don't care about girls, but the fact that I'm going after them means that I do actually care about them. So the second part we're going to go into is just checking my notes. Did I skip anything? We're going to go over the actual, like, how to be emotionally unavailable, right? In terms of the philosophy, and then maybe some more details on how it actually works in the seduction. But I will give you one hint. That most dudes in the red pill space, they just parrot each other, all right? They just literally say the same shit. Their solution, and I've fallen prey to this before in the past to a certain extent. Their solution to like this, the grand solution to how to be emotionally unavailable and chase your purpose. Whether it's money, your dream, your mission, your ambition. This can help. I'm not saying it's ineffective. I'm just saying it's not the highest level of effectiveness when it comes to emotional indifference towards women. Plus, everyone's just copying each other. And usually when everyone's saying it, you probably should be suspicious about how it actually works. There's a lot more nuance. Just chasing after your dreams and going after your goal, and she can sense that you're not like totally invested in her and you're on a mission and she's just like us, she's along for the ride and da-da-da. It has validity. I'm not denying that it doesn't have validity and girls can be really drawn to a guy who's on a mission and da-da. It can work, but it's not going to be the final solution. And it's something that actually a lot of guys have, especially if you're dating women who go after guys like you. Like, yeah, I'm on the grind, I'm making money, and these girls are just chasing after me. Yeah, but so is every other fucking guy they've dated. He's working 18 hours a day, grinding his ass off, smoking cigars, on a boat with all his bitches. They're used to that. So this also has to do with, like, what women you're kind of running around with. And what women you are running around with does matter, right? All women are like that to a certain percentage, right? All women have whatever positive or negative, like, potentialities in them. But some more than fucking others by large orders of magnitude, right? So if you're hanging around girls who happen to have all these traits, they're probably going to be more likely to act like this. But that's the thing, is most guys who adopt these philosophies tend to hang out with women like that. Why? Because like attracts like, motherfucker. If you're a toxic dude, you're probably drawing in toxic girls, and then it's your full sample size, and you've never actually spent a lot of time around good, wholesome women. And then you're like, yeah, women are like that, and if you think they're not, you're just going to get cucked by your fucking hometown girl who you think is, real good, but she's really a slut. Yeah, she is a slut. She wants to get fucked and, spit on and slapped around. Yeah, that's totally true, right? For the vast majority of women, just want to get treated like a whore with the guy they love. But the other parts are not necessarily true, where they're like, they're going to be, on the verge of giving into her hypergamous nature, and that's just, to a certain extent, yes, but like not as much as some of the girls you're hanging out with, right? They're way higher on the spectrum, right? Fuck, I digressed. The fuck was it? Oh yeah, if you're just chasing your purpose, like, yeah, but so is every other guy that she's going after, right? So you grinding all day and you're on your mission. That doesn't. If you're truly arguing for this hypergamous, like you got to outcompete the other guys and she's going to chase after you and not think you're some beta nerd. I mean, it can work, but every other guy is doing it. And I guarantee you some guys who do it still get cheated on, still get rejected, still get, don't actually get into the relationship with her because they drop out and get unattracted. Like, it's not going to be the big solution, but I will show you something that is. It's actually pretty fucking simple. I mean, it's simple in theory, but very hard to pull off because most guys aren't willing to go that far down the journey. But chasing after your mission, blah, 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 it will help, but not as much as you think it is. But most guys are going to sell you that because they're very one-dimensional in how they teach advice, and they don't understand actual game at the end of the day. They've kind of like seen this much, and they think it's this, but they haven't seen this. But again, that's why I'm here, to give you the real shit, with the nuance and the context and the over-explanations and the examples and the metaphors and the criticisms and every other thing that ends up with a 45-minute video. But that's why if you learn from me, you're going to have more consistent, long-lasting results and not be subject to a lot of the volatility that comes with not having a sound, robust philosophy behind what you're doing. So yeah. Stay tuned for part 2. I got stuff in the description. You can buy it. And I'll appreciate it. So will you. It'll be exchange of value. I will not be emotionally unavailable when it comes to selling you things. I'm fully emotionally involved in it because it's my living. So I got stuff in the description. You can purchase it. We will have an exchange of value. I'll give you wisdom. You give me money. And we're both happy. If you're interested in the highest level of exchange that we can have, it's personal coaching. But I mean that also monetarily, but also the value you're going to be getting back. It is a bit pricier. Maybe not as pricey as you think it is, but it is going to be a pretty penny. But in return, you get the best metaphor I have is you get a custom tailored suit. Courses and books are great. They can really help you. Or take you a long way. It's like a decent suit from, whatever, Brooks Brothers or something, right? But if you want a custom fucking tailored suit that fits like a glove, that's what personal coaching is. It's me sitting down with you, addressing your personal concerns, your personal desires, your conditions that might make your case a little bit differently. You need to work on this, whereas another guy needs to work on something completely opposite. But if you were to work on that thing that a different guy needs but you don't need, it's going to lead to very middling, inconsistent results. Whereas if you work on the thing you need to work on, you're going to see the fastest results from that very, very quickly. But that takes someone who knows what you need to work on because they've had either experience with it themselves or a client who's gone through it, fixed it, and then saw results. So that's the beauty of personal coaching. So if you're interested in that, I would definitely sign up. In the description below, there should be a link that says something like pre-sell Hector, and you go to it and you just put in your name and your email and phone number and the best time to contact you, and I'll call you and we'll have a talk to see if coaching is right for you. Otherwise, just buy the shit, get the courses and the books, go get some results, and we'll both be happy, like I said. Cool. So stay tuned for part number 2. It should be coming out pretty soon. I'll probably either record it right now afterwards or tomorrow. All right. Love you guys. Good luck. Be cool. Stay hard. Peace.